Alrighty, I have that it's straight up time to start. Welcome to what's a real treat, at least for me it's a treat, which is our conference call for the Alert Program and Halloween tips. And I'm joined today by my colleague and friend, Marci Laurel. Welcome, Marci.
Thank you so much.
And many of you may have had the pleasure of hearing Marci speak in person, but I'll tell you a little bit about her wonderful and extensive background. Marci is a speech and language pathologist at the University of New Mexico Center for Development and Disability Autism Programs, and if you can say that, you don't need speech and language services. But before she joined this CDD, as they call it, in January of 2011, Marci was most recently a member of the Albuquerque Public Schools Autism Resource Team, and she's practiced in Albuquerque for over the past 30 years, providing consultation, direct service in public schools, in private practice, in universities, so you name it, she's done it, seen it, heard it, felt it, and we're really excited because she has the opportunity to do lots of presentations around the country related to sensory processing and communication, family issues, especially for folks on the autism spectrum. And she always appreciates the chance to share her ideas with the communities, and I know the communities appreciate it back. And if that isn't enough, she also brings a really wonderful, unique perspective, not only because of her expertise but as a therapist, but also because she's the parent of two wonderful kiddos who have had their own sensory processing challenges, and you really do a lot to promote the role of family and family members as active team members, which I can certainly relate to having a brother who has had some special needs. And I know I'm going on and on here. I don't want to embarrass you, but if you get a chance to hear Marci speak or present, do so, because I've had a chance to speak with her a few times. I always learn, I always enjoy, and I really appreciate her making time for us in her schedule to do this here. She's really humoring me, as I have said of other folks, Carla Kay, too. So what we'll do is we'll delve into the strategies for not just surviving the Halloween season, but hopefully a way to make it kind of inviting or have some fun. I think of it as the literal what, where, when, and how of what makes sense to participate in and how we might want to make adaptations with that. And we have a silly little sound effect that I made that they're going to cue up for us here.
It's Halloween! Don't let it drive you batty!
Okay,
that
then.
definitely sets the tone.
Yeah, that does set the tone. It might be what we're all scared of, I'm not sure, is like, oh great, there'll be goofy stuff like that will just come at us and sound weird, and we'll go, what the heck was that? What did they say? So there we have it. But what we want to accomplish in our 30 minutes, as usual here, is to kind of stay with our two general themes that we've done a lot on the conference calls, which the first of which is keeping it simple, that I feel like so often we have so many recommendations, so many possibilities that we get overwhelmed and can't follow through with things. So this is our moment to get permission from Marci and I especially, and validation to go at it gradually, prevent overwhelm, pick a few things to try, let the rest fall into the future, and for another, in this case, for another Halloween to come. And then the second point being really making sure, because obviously this is a huge emphasis in the Alert program, that we set our clients and our family members up for success for whatever it is that we're going to choose to do. And I'll kind of add on this one. I've been thinking about this a lot as we looked at going into the conference call that in business, they have things called cost-benefit analysis. So if you have folks that are in business who do lots of work with financials, talk to them about this. But I think we have to start to get proactive and do this for our kiddos, yes, we can make them do this or we can have this happen, but there is a cost. And unfortunately, we don't see it. It may be an internal stress cost. It may be a cost in their trust in us later on. So we really want to kind of analyze that, and I think Marci and I will be referring back to that a little bit as we go along. But just remember, just because we got someone to do something, there may have been a cost. And of course, any of us that have been in long-term relationships or not so long-term relationships could certainly relate to that. You can get someone to do stuff. There may be a big cost to it, so who knows? I'll remind you that you'll have your email document with the links and the references for things as we go along. And I'm going to have Marci start us off with a really nice quote that we found about Halloween.
All right, fantastic. I'm so glad to be on the call. And Sherry shared this quote with me, and it just was perfect for what I was thinking as I was getting ready to think about Halloween with kids. So this was a quote by Dr. Hess, who's a developmental pediatric psychologist, in an article, or from an article entitled "How to Take the Trick Out of Trick or Treat," which is a great, great thing that we're here to
Really?
think about today. And she said this: if you add to the mix a particular occasion like Halloween, where the whole point of the experience is to relish the unexpected, dress up as scary, ghoulish characters, knock on strangers' doors, and ingest an enormous amount of sugared candy, all these elements combine to unnerve the already fragile neurological balance of our children on the spectrum. So Dr. Hess speaking about children on the autism spectrum and noticing that sometimes it's not so fun for all of our kids.
Absolutely. And the link for that is the Center for the Developing Mind. That'll be on your link sheet. But it really fit when you and I were thinking, and I was so excited that you wanted to do this one with me, because I feel like this is the perfect place to talk about, wow, what a veritable opportunity for disaster, really, for a lot of us, let alone those of us that have some extra special challenges. And when we first talked about it, Marci, I know you told me this great story about one of the little folks when you were first working in the schools. So go ahead and share that with the group here.
Yes, I hadn't thought about this in a long time until I was talking to Sherry about Halloween, and this was early, like, I hate to say how many years ago.
You don't have to.
A really long time ago, when I was working in a school for kids that had communication challenges, including autism. And there was a little guy, and I just remember Halloween parade was happening at school. All the kids were really, really excited. And here comes our little friend with his basket of books, just reading, wanting to read, asking to read, wanting to do what was typically on the schedule and not have anything to do with all of this and what was going on. And over the years, I've met lots of other kids for whom it has been challenging. And then there are also all of the kids for whom participating in a holiday like Halloween brings a great sense of belonging and excitement. And we want to talk about those kids too, and how we can make it the best possible holiday for everyone who has different experiences. But as Sherry said, we want to make sure it's worth the cost. And one of the things that I think is really critical to remember is that sometimes as adults we can be so anxious that we provide our kids with everything they're supposed to have when they're growing up, that we can forget that something like participating in Halloween is not a pivotal life skill. It's not something you have to learn, or as Sherry said, not even on the top 10.
That's
top
right.
100 life skills, and I kind of would compare it to eating in the school cafeteria. You know, it's good if you can do it, but it's not a top life skill that you need to learn.
It's not a make or break one, for sure.
Although
the retail salespeople might want to sell us that's different, about the incredible importance of participating in Halloween, but I think that's just to sell a lot of costumes, a lot of candy. But definitely, yes, not a top 10er there. And there's a nice web link that we'll include called Trick or Treating Isn't Mandatory. That's emphasized on the AOTA, that's the American Occupational Therapy Association's website. They have two really nice links, one called Halloween and Sensory Challenges, a real short article, and then another one that was very lovely and concise called 5 Tips for Helping Children with Sensory Challenges. So you'll get the links to both of those there. But even just in terms of other activities that we can have kiddos do, if you don't want to go the full-on trick-or-treating, which may not be the time to do that yet, and it doesn't mean that devastatingly you will never do the full-on trick-or-treating. So give us some other examples there, Marci.
Yeah, they talk about some fun stuff, which are really fall-type activities, picking apples, getting a pumpkin, carving a pumpkin can be so much fun for some kids, and some want to put their hands in the midst of that, and some don't.
That's right.
Roasting pumpkin seeds, all of those things that really are more fall activities, and just thinking, wow, you can just step away from all the tremendous mania and just do some of those kinds of things. The other thing that we talked about as we were preparing is also on the day, sometimes our little folks like to just be the one to give out the candy, and they may be in a costume giving out the candy or not. Some kids really like to take pictures, and so in this day and time of digital cameras and phone cameras, that can be easy enough. So when kids come to the door in costumes, they can take pictures of them. Some kids I've known like to have checklists around the costume, so maybe they're looking for how many Elvises are there, and Sherry will talk about more
love that
about Elvis
idea
later.
Yeah, we got a lot of Elvises coming up here.
How many zombies, how many Doctor Who, how many come in, just some blank spaces that an adult could write the ones, or that child could write the ones that they didn't expect. They can rate them, what their favorite ones were, that kind of thing. So lots of ways to participate without actually dressing up or without actually going door to door if that's not their thing.
And what I loved about that is we give it a great focus. You can have a very cool time with this very cool focus that you want to have, but it doesn't have to be around a way that is going to stress you out on other levels. So that's really good. And then as we think, as we often do on the calls, we kind of think about our different diagnostic categories of in attention deficit. I would think of this as definitely an attention deficit type of holiday. We got lots of surprise, reign supreme. Let's scare ourselves. Let's challenge this nervous system beyond what some might consider typical or fun. And it's one night, it's this, it's that, There's that novelty piece for our kiddos and our folks who enjoy that. Really enjoy it. So we don't want to dampen that down. But then for our folks who perhaps are on the spectrum, maybe have obsessive compulsive tendencies, anxiety disorders, things like that, for whom it's more comforting to have a routine, to have predictability or sameness, then our prep and practice for that will come in handy, because your little guy who was running around with his reading books, it would have been nice if he had known that this was coming a little sooner than that day. So that surprise can be really so not very fun, and actually is a huge yikes for our kiddos, and that comes back to that cost-benefit analysis, because if we stress them out, then we have stress chemistry. How do we help and support them in that? So one of the things we're going to spend quite a bit of time on here, and I'm excited about, is some of the ideas that we had for prep and practice for our kids who have developmental challenges. And this isn't really a special ed issue in my mind. This is an issue of framing what's coming, even as we develop in typical development. That our preschoolers and our young kiddos, there's a lot that they go, what was this? It's so odd. It has a lot of things. And I know, just even for my own sister, who is my other slug sister here, I'll tell a tale on her, is that she just had kind of a house limit that was your number of years old that you were.
That's a good idea.
And so it kept it really simple. So when the kiddo was one, we had one special house they went to. It was a nice neighbor who they had a great relationship with. They made a little bag. He thought he'd scored. He came home. He was the hander-outer person for the rest of the holiday, and we didn't have any meltdowns, because it's not just our kids with sensitivities that are melting down. There's plenty of melting down going on out there. But then it allows all of us then to go back to the house, be in partial or full costume, but be in the comfort of our own home, playing with the candy or sorting it out if we wanted to, having blankies and comfort toys and our strategies all right there. So it made the whole thing a lot easier.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And Marci, you wanted to talk about duration here.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that we can get carried away. And I want to say, as a mom especially, sometimes we just want to make it what we think it's supposed to be for our kids.
Right.
I own up to can have so much fear of their disappointment that it's not going to be what they thought it was going to be, what I thought it was going to be. And so it's just great to remember it's not a marathon, and that contrary to our belief in our popular culture, it's not that more is better. It's not that the person who consumes the most candy is the winner. And, especially with what we know about the cost balance on all the candy that gets ingested, which we'll talk about over time. So trying to just remind ourselves as the adult in the situation that we can keep it simple, and sometimes our own anxiety around how it's going to turn out for our kids can make the day more stressful.
Yeah, that wanting to make it a special something. I feel for me, my own personal issue is like, I love this piece. I want you to get that love of it too. And that may not be your love. So I got to get over myself that way, and I think some other people may have that. One that's really nice, that one of the links is that reinforces that is called Halloween Tips for SPD Kiddos, and you'll have a link to that at Sensory Planet. They do a nice job of describing some of that. And then a little bit about social stories and using a lot of Carol Gray's wonderful work, which we'll have a link for you.
So a lot of people are familiar with using social stories, which are generally used to help kids deal with specific situations that are challenging for them, and allow them to understand what might be challenging and then what might be some solutions that are very geared to that person. And so lots of you, I'm sure, have used that strategy with children. So you could use a social story just to prepare for the changes in the day. So back to our friend who wanted to do reading when it was reading time, had there been a social story that was being read the week previous and that morning about how it was going to be a different day and what some choices would be for him if he felt overwhelmed, that probably would have been really helpful for him. You could have a social story, just a little short one about what happens when you knock and people don't answer the door, because that can be really surprising and disappointing for kids. Or what happens, heaven forbid, that they hand you a candy that you do not like, and there are things you probably shouldn't say when that happens.
Although they may be true, they maybe should not be said.
Exactly. Thought bubble, as another colleague, our colleague Mo Taylor would say.
That's right.
So just getting ready for those kinds of things can be really important. Along that same line, sometimes a little schedule, like a schedule of pictures that shows the events that are going to happen on Halloween, might have a little picture of the dress up, then a little picture of the trick-or-treating, and then a little picture of coming back to the house could be helpful. So just giving those pre-planning and opportunities for kids to understand what's going to happen and what might they need help with based on what we already know about them.
Absolutely.
And we also talked about some planning around the calendar, and I have some personal experience with this, both with my own kids and with the other kids that I know and worked with, that there's a few things that can really be tricky, and one of them, for some of our kids, really have trouble deciding things, and all kids can be this way. It's the myriad of things you could pretend to be, and you have to pick one. And I know one child in particular whose mom just struggled with this year after year. It was just like a nightmare trying to figure out what costume he was going to be. He was a very creative guy, but wasn't so good at decision making. So getting a date on the calendar so you know, I'm going to decide by this date can be really, really helpful. And also to see Halloween coming, so you're kind of mediating some of that excitement.
And even with that, I was thinking of that too, and then we're deciding that date, and then we're sticking with that. That's our thing for this year. And we can make a list of stuff we might do another time, kind of thing, right?
That's a really good idea.
You know, so we're not saying no, but we're saying, oh, yes, but this is what we decided this year here.
Good point, yes.
So, and then there are a couple more links that kind of reinforce something that really should be a no-brainer, which is we should never force children to wear a costume, and a number of other nice tips. If you feel certain you have someone in your life who needs that in writing instead of just trusting you on it, then you could go and look at the Tips for Halloween article from Sensory Smart's website. We also have a Sensory Tips for Halloween website where they reinforce a lot about the heavy work and the sensory motor strategies. Those of you that have the Take 5 book, I know many of you already have that. We have a whole list of movement and heavy work activities that are going to be done before, during, and after all of our lovely festivities. But you can certainly go take a look at those. Make it a trick-or-treat bag that just has some of your sensory strategies in it as you go along. So looking at pulling it out. Okay, now we're going to just do 10 jumps. Okay, now we're going to just push on this or do that or whatever, so that we can actually put our job as therapists is to think how to put our therapeutic stuff into real life rather than piling on other things to do. So just thinking about having that be part of the tradition. I can think of plenty of kids for whom that would be a good match, actually.
Definitely. I wish I'd had that tip earlier.
And then pretend play. Marci, talk to us about the pretend play, the acting it out, the practicing stuff.
We talked about a little bit of role playing. You know, pretending to trick or treat can be really fun. You're knocking on the bedroom doors all over the house, and, you know, it could just be a little toy or a little hand fidget or something that you get as a treat or even a pretend treat. Also, you can have, pretend they're giving out candy. Now I'm going to take a turn to stand behind the bedroom door as the child and give things out, so I get used to that fact that I'm letting go of something I really like into somebody else's bucket, which can be hard.
Yeah.
So, just role-playing how it's going to go in a real playful way.
Absolutely. Trying costumes on in advance, I think you mentioned, and being really clear. There's a nice video link we'll send to you, Tips for a Sensory-Friendly Halloween, where a little guy who gets to a door they don't answer, and he has a very sweet way of solving the problem. And this is so I'll encourage you to go to that link and watch the little video of them. It's just sweet and adorable, and it reminds us how great our kids really are. Let's see. Talking about there's another link. Halloween and Sensory Challenges that we'll talk with you about, kind of talks a little more about some of the dress rehearsal kind of things and things you might used to do. Another one called Wonderful SPD School Tips, School Tools and Tips for Halloween from Pathfinders for Autism. That's a nice blog we'll send you to there. But just practicing. I know my niece liked to sort, and so she would prepare and sort the candy that was to be distributed, and it was just like she had bounty, you know. She just, I have all this stuff, you know, and she knew it wasn't hers. She wasn't eating it, and there was plenty of kids who couldn't handle that, but for her, it was this great sorting game. She does it for about a week ahead of time, and when you come to the door, by golly, she will have a plan for you.
She's organized.
I know it. She is organized. I think there's some kind of event planning in her future, I need to say. It's quite hysterical to watch. But practice doing the strategies that you're going to be incorporating, too, in our practice times. There's tips for a link to tips for making Halloween more enjoyable for children on the autism spectrum, and we'll give you that link. And Marci, you can tell us about your infamous candy stash that you and your husband Jack experienced.
Absolutely. You know, it's really something that a lot of us deal with when we have kids come home with all that candy, and especially for certain kids who have specific needs and have a little more trouble organizing all kinds of input into their body, including sugar. We just want to be careful they're not having a barrage of that. So we did have a lot of sorting and trading go on at our house. That was something that was really fun for our kids, and that they had practiced with a particular friend that they always did this with over the years. And then they would have a certain number of candies that they could eat that night, and then we'd put it away. We never said they couldn't have it again, but we did put it out of sight, and they'd remember it for a couple of days, and then they'd kind of forget about it. And so Jack and I just have these bags of old stale candy that, you know, we just have in the closet because we just didn't dare throw them out because, heaven forbid, they would ask for them, and yet it really didn't become that big of an issue. It was the trick-or-treating, the sorting, all of that stuff that was a lot more fun.
And we get the chance to do that as adults and the big people. I want to remind us, we get to set the tone. That it's not, the candy isn't the most important thing, it's the fun of the holiday. So keep that in mind and embrace it as we do this. And then my brother, who has Down syndrome, he loves to dress up as Elvis. As a matter of fact, in terms of sameness, he has been Elvis for the past 10 to 15 years, I'm sure. I was trying to, I know it, and he loves this. Each year he adds a more realistic piece to his costume. This is his joy. It's thrilling. He loves it. His friend is Elvis, too. You know, I mean, it just goes on. And because I do his online ordering for safety reasons, you can only imagine what suggestions I get as you might like to buy this, having ordered all his Elvis gear for him. So just kind of a funny thing. We're going to clip along and get to some of our strategies here, and then to a parent question. So in the alert program, we do emphasize the mouth, move, touch, look, and listen categories, as you well know, but we wanted to talk about smell because smell is a big factor for us in all the makeup, in the gels, in the face paints, in the masks, and just be careful and cautious of that. And that goes along with our prep, really, because airing some of that stuff out and trying it on before the holiday may allow it to kind of detox, if you will. And then remembering, of course, the co-regulation on our part that to support ourselves as adults, we really need to keep ourselves together as we're going to totally support the holiday stuff. But in the mouth, it's really, because if we're off, gee, what are the chances they can have a great holiday too? So taking care of ourselves is a huge priority. But in the mouth, remembering that breath and suck work are going to be really helpful to us. So remembering breath strategies, that can be singing, humming, games, Halloween songs, and noises. I especially am a huge fan. I don't get any royalties, but on the Camelback water bottle, because it is the bite and suck together. So having things just like Camelbacks if we don't want to do, but then if they did get some candy that involved suck, I would say stick with that. Remember that our suck strategies are going to be organizing to our nervous system, and what a better time than this to help to organize the nervous system. And you, again, can look, I know those of you that have the Take 5 book, go ahead and look up some of the wonderful strategies that we have there. Our kiddos who use pacifiers, this might be a holiday where I would really look to incorporate that in their costume so that they can keep themselves organized and use the pacifier on the time. And then our kids who are able to whistle is another really good breath work thing. We can look at whistling Halloween songs, things like that. Then the move category, you know, heavy work. We say it over and over again. We have lots of websites that have embraced it and reinforce it. You can go to one of our links, Helpful Hints for Children with SPD article. That's our North Shore Pediatric Therapy for Kids. They have wonderful lists there. You can make the costume more of a float, and your little beloved person could pull you. This one I thought of, I think I was having a slug moment when I thought of this one.
I think you were.
but I thought, what the heck? Put me in the wagon, pull me around, we're done. Simon Says with heavy work in it, just framing it with monsters or poses or freeze tags or things like that where we can do, and then certainly just literally stomping our feet as we walk from house to house, or pushing on signposts or growling or silly songs. All that stuff's going to be huge. Then in the touch category, of course, weighted almost anything part of your costume. Our friend Terry Morrow and colleague at About.com has some nice resources for us there, how to make a Halloween costume for a child with sensory integration dysfunction. So if you want a how-to, she's got a bunch of them there. Carrying heavy stuffed animals are things we always talk about this, but here you go. You have a chance for it to be part of the costume. Have your Halloween trick-or-treat bag have fidgets in there, and then giving out fidgets. There's another link from the Sensory Smart Parent that we'll talk about. Rather than doing the candy thing, go ahead and order the gazillion cheap little spider rings or whatever you would want to do, and have that be your treat at your house, especially for our kiddos that have some limitations with their diet. And folks on special diets, there's so many good foods that you could do if you can't do the fidget toy thing too. So not forgetting that. I know that's not necessarily the touch category there, but I didn't want to forget to mention that one. In the look category, flashlights and the wonderful potential for fun and therapy with all of this that we have when we're doing flashlights. Kids love flashlights. Let's find a way to keep it, and the glow sticks. So now we're looking at a safety aspect, but here we have a chance to have a lot of fun with it. So in the look category, remember that some kids just going out in the dark at night might be hard. So looking at trick-or-treating early and heading back to your house so that you're part of the fun of people coming to your door, that kind of thing. In the listen category, you can definitely have fun, silly Halloween songs. Lots of those will be in the kids will have participated in school. We have in the test drive book and CD some transition songs, which are really great to have. Okay, when the music's done, we're moving on to this kind of thing. Listening to your favorite music through headphones or something while you're trick-or-treating, or using your earplugs or ear protectors. It could even be part of your costume. Perhaps you are a shooting person and need to have the ear protectors on. We don't know. It's up to you. So we'll go ahead and talk about a question that we had from a parent, and I'm going to read the question, and Marci's going to help us kind of give some really good answers. We had some fun with this. Is the parent a question that we may never have ever heard before? The parent is, I am stressed, and I'm not creative or crafty, and I know there's websites and Pinterest and everything else where they say, oh, just make this. It's so easy with the costume, but the parent just says, help. So Marci has good examples for us here.
I'm telling you, I feel your pain, and as a mother and a human being who is just not, I am not the person who likes surprises. I am not the novelty person. I found Halloween extremely challenging. The mother of a boy who's now 22 who loves novelty and excitement and visualizing that costume, it sometimes wasn't the greatest match. So I'll tell you about a time when my son decided at 5 that he wanted to be the solar system for Halloween. He was just bent on it and sure that's what he had to be, and I was just in a panic. So no, I had no idea how to do it, and it didn't help when friends gave me their long-winded explanations of how I could make planets all over his body. There was no way. And just that whole starting with "it's so easy" isn't always a helpful phrase. Not always a helpful phrase. Huh? And for a little boy who lived a lot of his life in his imagination and in his own dream world, it was hard for him to understand the limits of a costume. And I know I'm not the only one who's experienced that. Yeah, that was a great point. I really learned a lot from you on that one. Really challenging. So thankfully for the wonderful best grandmother of all time, my mother came up with a shirt from the Children's Museum that had the solar system on it with just a little face paint for the planets that he could tolerate for a short time and wanted to have on his cheek, and a hat with the planets. And let me tell you, my 2, 3, and 5-year-old were adorable solar systems. Voila! For that is fantastic. And that's the thing. It is hard to think outside with those kinds of ideas. It really can be. And also, again, to have our kids visualize something that they want. They want to have a beard, but then they put the fake beard on, and then it doesn't feel good, or then you draw it on, but it comes off, and it's not there when they look in the mirror, and it can be really overwhelming to our kids. So hopefully thinking about some of these strategies, and when Sherry was going through some of those, I just wished I had known more when my kids were younger. But hindsight for all of us, right? That's the truth. Hindsight always. But and then the pretending piece, I think that when you brought this up to me, Marci, it was really helpful to think about is that
our kiddos who don't pretend well or are very concrete thinkers yet in their development, when we say, oh, yes, this cool pipe cleaner will be your antenna, and they're like, no, that's not an antenna, it's a pipe cleaner,
Absolutely.
you know. So remembering that we're going to have that match of the creative and simple, but really working for them. And I totally agree with you. As a sister, I just felt it was so hard to see my brother be disappointed about stuff that I knew could be really fun for him. And I know as a parent you've talked tremendously about
Very
that and
challenging,
educated a lot of us on it.
Know that your children will grow up and it will be over, and you won't always have to do Halloween.
And so, Marci, I understand that this year you are celebrating the lack of need to develop Halloween costumes.
I must admit, but there's always the "This is my costume" T-shirt at Walgreens that you can.
That's right. Don't forget that. I thought because I just love professional sports, just put your shirt on for the sports team and be a fan if you wanted to, or just really simple stuff. And remembering our heavy work.
Before, during, and after.
Before, during, and after. So we're going to, hopefully that helped us to think about ways to keep it simple. Remember that you'll get your resources list with some of the links that I mentioned, and keeping it simple, and then, of course, setting people up for success. So that's our heavy work, before, during, after, heavy work. I want to thank Marci so much for joining me today. This is so fun for me. I hope it was helpful and fun for you all, and it's a great feeling to get to talk together with you. So thank you, Marci.
It's a pleasure.
I'll do my common sense disclaimer. This is included in your little email link list, but if anything you heard, you were unsure of, felt that it didn't be a right match, didn't seem to fit for you or your family, trust your judgment, don't do it. Get some support, get some professional help. You certainly deserve it. And we'll look at winding this up now by just saying Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Have fun whatever way you like to have fun.